Hola fellow forum members. I'm gonna be talking in this video about all that stuff we've been discussing about postures and arm positions and sitting positions and all that stuff we've been talking about. So I'm gonna give my perspective because I feel like discussing things will actually help, and I feel like I haven't been able to portray what I wanted to portray by just using text. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to show you what I'm talking about. So, as you all know, I'm using this famous guitar support thing, which Deutsch hates so much, but I'm using it because it really helps with my back. When I'm sitting in cross-legged position, it's really hurting my back, and to get legitimacy about that, I'll have to say that Grisha is now using something like this. So if Grisha is using it, so it is cool, flamenco wise. So going back to the arm position, when I'm sitting in the traditional position, regardless of whether I'm using this support or not, this doesn't really make any difference. This is how, so I'm wearing a t-shirt so that you can see, this is how my arm is going to be sitting on the guitar. So over here is where it's usually sitting. Alright. And the way that I'm playing is like this. And you can see that there is no contact, just like Richard says. There is barely any contact over here, or none whatsoever if I move my arm a bit forward. Between the forearm and the top of the guitar, or the edge of the guitar, there is no contact. And I can play just fine like that. So I can go through the techniques. I can do arpeggios, and then the whole kudo issue will come up of whether I should be playing like this or like that, but that's another story. So this is how I can play arpeggios. I can play al sapua. I can play pulgar. I can basically do all the techniques, tremolo. Alright, so all the techniques are great, except when we get to the famous Picado. Then this is my posture has not changed. Alright, so say I want to do this. To show the transition between arpeggio and picado, for example. Alright, so let me show this from the front. So this is something that I might be able to get used to if I practice it, because frankly I don't feel very comfortable doing picado in this position. And the reason is, if you look at my wrist, when I'm playing on the trebles, it's somewhat okay with the angle over here and the wrist angle over here and all that. It's somewhat okay. Alright, so the angle is somewhat alright when playing on the trebles. But when I go up to the basses, so when I go up to the basses, the angle here becomes a little bit too much, too steep, and it's not as comfortable for me to play. Maybe I need to just get used to this, and this eventually will solve the problem. And all the time when playing, my arm would be in the same position, with the biceps on the side of the guitar and my forearm basically not touching the side, or very barely touching it, to a point there's just no way that you can actually compress anything like a nerve or whatever. Okay, so which is fine, all right, but I still haven't been able to get used to this way of playing that much, but I guess I can work on it and see how that'll progress or not progress. All right, so when I'm playing this way, I feel somewhat comfortable. However, for Picado, if I want to feel really comfortable, this is what I have to do. I have to do this. All right, and if I were not to be using the guitar support, if I wanted to do this, it'll become even worse, because for the guitar not to tip over and fall, I really don't see how you can try not to have to put pressure over here and indent, as you can see here with the way my forearm gets indented, and there's a little mark that forms over here. I'm not sure if you can see it. So I don't really know how you can try to do the PDL thing, where you raise a little bit from the elbow and from the shoulder somewhat, so that you can actually achieve this angle of playing. That's more involves actually less of doing this and trying to keep the wrist straight, more with continuity over here. So this feels to me much more comfortable as a Picado position. And you can tell that I can get much better sound and more speed when I'm playing in this position. Probably because my nails don't get stuck as much as they do when I'm playing in this position like that. And I don't get the sound that I like that much. So there's a difference between this and this. Now, the thing is that when I practiced this for a long time with this sort of position, firstly, I just cannot see how you can do this without having your forearm touching the edge of the guitar. I just can't. I mean, Richard is talking about having the forearm parallel or something like that, or barely touching. I mean, maybe this is something that is doable and I'm just making a big deal out of it, or maybe I'm a little bit too tense and not relaxed enough to be able to just barely touch the top in a way so that I can actually have the guitar get stabilized but not dig into the side of the guitar too much here to cause this issue of the circulation or nerve or whatever you want to call it. Maybe that's the issue. I guess if I work on it, maybe I can try to relax to a point where I just find the right amount of pressure that will just keep the guitar steady so that I can play and not have it tip over, and not have to at the same time dig too much into it, so that I can stabilize it. Maybe it's because I stink at Picado and I'm still too tense when I'm playing it, that it sort of I unconsciously just dig into the edge because I'm not relaxed enough, and that's part of the whole tension in my body or something like that. So that might be an issue. I mean, if you can give me some comments about that, that would be helpful for me. Now, the other issue that now I'm getting with playing in the traditional style is that when you're playing in this style, it's just inevitable that your shoulder is going to be higher than when you're playing say in the cross-legged style like this. So now your shoulder is lower. If you look at here, comparing this, like if you're playing in the cross-legged position, which I'm playing in right now. So the shoulder is lower than when you're playing like this, and like this the shoulder just has to be a little bit higher if you compare this to this. Now this might be another issue of me being tense and not relaxing enough or something. I really don't know, but what's happening when I'm playing in the position which is sort of like this, and I'm having my shoulder up a bit. Just a second. So when I'm having my shoulder up a bit, like in this position, I'm starting to develop this neck / shoulder muscle, so like the trapezius muscle or something like that over here. I'm starting to develop some stiffness over here, and I wake up the day after having practiced somewhat, and it's really bothersome. It's not something that is just you can take lightly. I mean, I have problems turning my neck, and it's really bothersome to me. And it's on both sides. I develop tension over here in my neck, and I develop tension over here in my shoulder or trapezius muscle or whatever you want to refer to that area as. So this is something that doesn't really happen that much when I'm just playing in the traditional position and not doing much picado. Okay, so when I'm doing all the other techniques that really don't involve me doing this, when I'm playing all arpeggios and whatnot, it's relatively fine, and I don't have a huge amount of issues. But when I practice picado, because I don't feel very comfortable keeping my arm the same for arpeggio and for picado, and I inadvertently do some of this, or if not all the way up, I do just a little bit of it. I mean, if I start out in this position, then I do something like this, for example. Okay, so this is like in between this and in between this. So I do something just a little bit like that. Maybe I should pay more conscious attention to actually dropping my shoulder down and not raising it up. I mean, Adam Del Monte discusses that in one of his videos on GSI, and he says that it has to be from the elbow and not from the shoulder. So basically what he's trying to say, I guess, is that you have to basically try to do this thing where you're using the same position for arpeggio and then for picado. And this is the elbow thing that he's talking about over here. So moving up to the basses from the elbow rather than from the shoulder. Okay, and what that entails basically is the thing that we talked about with this wrist position over here becoming more steep as you go up, because that's the only way that you can maintain the same angle, in my opinion, if you're going up from trebles to basses without having to really be playing like that, you know? I mean, if you start out over here and you don't want to change this angle, then you have to do something like that when you're going up so that you can maintain this alignment, or else you have to do that so that you can keep the same angle of attack sort of as you go up. And for you to do that, you are going to be using the elbow basically, and I guess he feels comfortable with it and he can do that, and maybe that's why he doesn't get shoulder issues. But I haven't been able to feel very comfortable with that still, and maybe the whole issue is that I need to spend more time on that and get more comfortable with playing picado in the same position as playing arpeggio and all other techniques, rather than trying to raise the elbow up. Alright, so all of these issues I don't really get when I'm playing cross-legged. Okay, so when I'm playing cross-legged, I can play arpeggios, and this is what my arm will look like, which is fine. I mean, I can have it touching a little bit, and that's not an issue usually over here with respect to to the forearm, touching the side a little bit, and that's usually fine. It's not a huge issue. And I can also play the Picado a la PDL style like this over here. And it usually doesn't cause me a huge issue of shoulder tension or whatnot, because it doesn't involve me having to raise my shoulder as much as it does when I'm in the traditional position. This involves me having to raise my shoulder up more because of the way the guitar is positioned. Alright, so I get more shoulder issues when I'm doing the PDL style Picado in the traditional position than in the cross-legged position. In the cross-legged position, I can get away with doing this without much shoulder issues. But the only problem with the cross-legged position is two things basically. Firstly, the left wrist, because when I'm playing in the cross-legged position, I have to do more of this with my wrist to be able to play, versus when I'm in this position, I have less of that wrist thing like this to do. And I have this thing with this ganglion over here which keeps bothering me, and I haven't gotten surgery for it yet or anything like that. And I might, who knows, that might be the solution to all the issues. So when I'm playing in the cross-legged position, the first problem is that my left wrist starts to hurt. And secondly, my back starts to hurt as well, my lower back, because of the cross-legged thing that I'm doing here with my right leg. So that's why I've had to abandon sitting cross-legged for long periods of time. So even though this is my most comfortable sitting position, frankly, in terms of the playing and not in terms of the wrist and back issues going on. I mean, that's how I used to play for the past 10 years, I guess, and maybe that's why I ended up with this back pain and wrist pain, who knows. So the summary basically is that when I'm playing Picado, I either have to do it with the same position as when I'm playing arpeggios, or I have to do the PDL thing. And raising the shoulder up is what I find to be the most comfortable in terms of the playing, but it's not very comfortable in terms of what residual effects it leaves on my neck and on my shoulders. So that's all I have to discuss at this point. I mean, I might have forgotten something, and maybe this video is a little bit too long now, but I had to actually do this so that I can try to get the message across. So whatever feedback you can give me after going through this somewhat lengthy video, I'd appreciate it. And the idea is for us to discuss, I guess, and try to get stuff out in the open. I mean, that's why we have people who have more experience than others, and I might just be missing stuff, even though you think that I might be ignoring some of the things that you're saying and maybe being stubborn about some things. But still, if you can help out, that would be much appreciated. And I'll try to keep an open mind as much as possible and try out all the possibilities and see what I can come up with. And eventually the goal is to be able to play in a healthy way and not have any aches or pains associated with that, and be able to practice and not have problems while doing so, and then be able to play and enjoy and have fun. So thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. Muchas gracias.